The tool for remote viewing is this, and this. That's the body, mind, brain.
Remote viewing is basically, essentially, a right brain activity.
There are a few people who are in the workshop who have no idea what they're about to do, and we understand that too. There are some of you who know what you're about to do, and there's fear of failure and all of that. We'll fix that. That's our job. You'll walk out of here with the skills in this workshop. I encourage you to teach your family, your friends, anybody that you can grab to teach. You'll be able to teach what you learn here very effectively, and it's quite astounding. It's an amazing process. You won't know how amazing it is until you see it at work for yourself. But anybody can pick it up because it's natural. It's a natural process. The syntax and the grammar for how unconscious communicates with conscious awareness. That's what we're doing here, but in a very precision, rigorous fashion. The same way you do it in the Army. So remote viewing is a three-part process. Viewing is kind of a misnomer. There isn't a lot of viewing that we do in terms of visuals. In fact, visuals can be dangerous in our work. Visuals can be the enemy. We'll talk about visuals. First part of the process is what we call targeting. We're going into the collective unconscious, what we call the matrix, using the vernacular. And we're developing a target cue. All that means is that you're turning your unconscious attention to a specific pattern of information that exists in the collective unconscious. All things and ideas exist as patterns of information. Everything, sort of a coherent wave. So you're turning your attention towards that. Most of your attention right now is focused on me. Some of you are kind of 40% over here and 60% on me, varying degrees of attention. Remote viewing is an attention, or can be thought of as an attention management process. We're going to manage our attention. In this process, we're going to turn most of our attention on this little, rarely used in the Western world thing called the unconscious. It's there at night when you sleep and it percolates into dreams, but in the daytime, us Westerners rarely use it. If you're an Aboriginal in the outback, you use it a lot because you're interested in where's water, food, shelter, those kinds of things. But we rarely use it here. We're very busy at the conscious level. We'll talk about levels of consciousness and awareness in a moment. The second part of the remote viewing process is the skill itself. This workshop is heavy on the skill, very heavy on the skill. And the last part of the remote viewing process is analysis. Analysis is the most difficult part of a remote viewing. It is a skill in and of itself. Unconscious has a language all its own. Carl Jung was patently aware of this. And it presents itself in symbols, and these symbols translate standard symbolic translation across the board to humans in a very interesting way. Our unconscious, when it bypasses our thinking higher level brain, that last quarter inch, that neocortex, where all the wiring is, when unconscious goes right to our autonomic nervous system, our body has the right answer. You have access to factual information, to the truth, if you were, as it were. And when the symbols present themselves to humans on a piece of paper, as drawn as a symbol, they're standardized, as you'll see tomorrow. Everybody will produce the same symbol in response to the same pattern of information, which is amazing, I think. And it allows us to do this effectively all the time, to be 100% certain about our data. This is a standardized procedure. Everybody works the same way. There'll be a running 20% error rate, nominally speaking. Your data will be 80% correct, 20% error rate. Okay. In advanced remote viewing classes, we teach people how to error trap, and we can bring that error rate down to 10%, and the likelihood that the data is correct up to 90%. We can't hit 100% unless we're working with 2 or more trained remote viewers. 2 or more trained remote viewers working blind targets where they do not know consciously what the target is. If their data is mutually corroborating, we know from experience, empirically, that that data is 100% correct. It turns out that our bicameral brains process information in a certain way, a certain way that's different than a hummingbird and a rhinoceros and an alien on another planet that might have a 3-brain system. A moment of time for a human being, according to our hardware, is about 3 seconds. We process our world, our life, our experiences in packets of 3 seconds. A moment ago, I was talking about a hummingbird and a rhinoceros. Crunch, crunch, crunch. So that's important for this process right here, because if you're going through the process in a metronomic fashion, if you pause more than 3 seconds, the likelihood that your imagination will take the signal, this hypothetical signal that emanates from the pattern of information that we're locked onto, the likelihood that imagination will step in is very high. It needs also 3 seconds to process, to grab a color yellow and a dimension of long and a texture of soft to say, that must be a banana. Okay, and you need 3 seconds to do that as well. So if you stay within this bandwidth of time, like a metronome on a piano, playing the piano, it's much easier to not shunt imagination, but to preclude it from grabbing the data and doing something with it. Imagination acts in 2 ways in our business. It's analysis, us trying to bring closure to the data. But this is not a thinking process. This is all a perceptual process. It's rote. We go right through a list, and we'll talk what you're actually doing after our first session. But imagination acts also as visuals. If you get a clear visual, that's imagination. And your egos will want to bring closure to the data. And that's thinking. If you catch yourself thinking, that's your egoic mind saying, this must be the Eiffel Tower, it must be a banana, it must be this, it must be my mother's living room when I was like, on and on and on and on and on. Okay? We avoid that by having this set pace and cadence that FM is talking about. So after we work a couple sessions, we'll get into more of I'll explain more of the mechanics, the dynamics, and a little bit of the theory, our working hypothesis, and the model of remote viewing. You know, I won't send you into overload, just about though, and so that you understand what you're doing, because that's important. What's happening in your mind? What's happening in your brain? What's happening with the mind-brain system, the mind-brain-body system? What's going on inside that allows you to do this effectively? So those are the 3 parts of the process. In a few short moments, we're going to start right here.
What I'm going to do is, just real quick, these are going to be my autonomic scribbles, so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. We're not looking for anything that's it's got any design to it or necessarily a fixed pattern that you want to portray. Essentially, we just want it to flow. So I put my pen on the paper here. There we go. About a second. That's it.
I would like that faster.
Okay.
Please. Still too slow. Still too slow. Faster. Okay, do it this way. Put your pen down a little bit lower. Put your pen down a little bit lower. Hold on to that. Okay, ready, set, go. Down. That's the one. That one right there is what we want. Exactly this. Do you see how fast he did that? That's perfect. That's perfection in this tray. There's an aperture of time where the gestalt that represents we borrowed that term from our German friends, the gestalt that represents the entirety of the site comes into you in a burst transmission. Bam! It's there. And that captures the entire gestalt. All the archetypes that are present at the site are captured at that aperture of time. Okay, bam, in a burst transmission. The rest of our remote viewing session, whether it's 3 minutes or 15 minutes, is decompressing the data. Burst transmission, a compressed data like a zip file. The rest of our session is unzipping it using contemporary internet vernacular. It's unzipping the file. That's what you're doing. But you can't unzip something that if it's incorrect or there's too much trash inherent on it, your session will not be pristine. It won't be as elegant as it could be. His would be very elegant now because that's so perfect. That one right there.
I think what I would like to do is start right in and actually do a remote viewing session. If you see me remote view, it'll help you greatly to get an idea of what's going on.
The pace, the cadence, it's important.
Yeah, exactly. As Ed said, the pace and the cadence. As you watch me work, where my pen is, how fast I'm going, and at the cadence, the tempo or the rhythm as I move through the session. I want you to watch me and the way that I move from the top of the page to the bottom. The way that I, as we say, move through structure, okay? Because it's very important. What you're going to see me doing is essentially turning my attention to the target. That's a first step. Once that's done, I'm going to turn my attention to this structure and just pay attention to this structure and where I am at in this structure. Then I'm going to pay attention to every piece of information that is coming out of my unconscious mind and up into conscious awareness, and I'm going to write it down.
May I interject?
Please do.
We start training by taking a photograph and placing a photograph of something, a person, place, thing, or event, placing it in a sealed envelope. Okay. That becomes a pointer. It is the picture itself is for feedback purposes. We can just as easily write the name of the target on there. Our unconscious attention still goes to where we direct it to go to. It doesn't matter whether you have a photograph or the name of a target, with one exception that we'll talk about later. All right? This photograph, though, is not our target. It's a pointer. It points to the actual target in the matrix. All right? If it's, let's say, the Eiffel Tower, we have a feedback photo of the Eiffel Tower. Unconscious knows what its mission is. It turns its attention to the Eiffel Tower as a pattern of information. If you have a photograph as feedback material, this is important. If there is a photograph, a postcard, or any snapshot, that will influence the angle of attack that unconscious takes. The unconscious will direct itself to that specific target or site at that moment of time when the picture was taken. If you don't use a photograph and you just put the name of the target and place that inside the sealed envelope, then mind's outside of time. It can pick up the target at any point, present, past, or even future. Okay? So the photograph locks unconscious in time at that moment. Mind is outside of time. Why do we put it in a sealed envelope? To make it easier. If I want to know what is inside of this top secret laboratory over here in China, let's say, and I have a picture of the laboratory, and I know what the target is, then my analytical mind goes crazy. Well, it must be this, it could be this, it must be that. We just make it easier on ourselves by not telling the viewer, the new student, what the target is. Advanced viewers, it's no problem. We know enough not to get involved in what we think that may be. It's not a thinking process, it's a perceiving process. And it's rote. It's very easy to do. In terms of human potential, this is an easy thing to do. Everybody knows that we're all naturally intuitive. This structure, though, makes it accurate. That's the ticket. That's the key to success, the structure that you see here. This is basic structure, yes, but you have to start somewhere. And this is a skill. This is a skill.
From the beginning of when I start this session to the very end, as you will also train, 3 minutes. About 3 minutes from top to bottom. Let's go. Let's just remote view. So follow along. Watch the way that I work, and I'll talk a little bit throughout the session, a little bit, as to exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Okay. Target right here. Turn my attention to the target. Now I pay attention to the structure. Take my pen, place it right in the center of this square right here, and 1 second scribble. Pen here, textures, rough. Next texture is, I got the word salty. Salty is not a texture. Back to the pen here, textures, rough again. Sandy. Colors, red, amber, white, yellow. I got a visual image, so I come over here to this trash can column of a beach scene. visual image in my mind's eye. I know that it's not the target, so I drop my pen real quick, get rid of that visual image, pick up the pen, smells, the word fresh. Just taking the words right out of what comes next. Tastes, they're salty. Tastes fresh. Oop. Got the word liquid. Temperatures, warm. Moderate. Just the word pops into conscious awareness. Hope you can read this. Sounds, quiet. Got the onomatopoeic a gur sound. Next sound, echoes. Got the word SOL something, I don't know what it is. Now, trash, mind races in to fill that void. Soliloquy. Good God, soliloquy. Drop that. Back to structured. Dimensions. Flat. Open. Far. High. Low. Outside. Angular. Motion. The word motion. Not much room here, so I'll put it over here. Getting close to the end of my 3 minutes. Feeling word. How does the target make me feel? Reflective. I got the word good also, but that's the way the target makes me feel. We're really only looking for one feeling word, good, reflective. Now it's 10-second sketch. Something here. About 10 seconds. That's about it. About 3 minutes.
This process cannot be interrupted. If you interrupt it, you have to start it over again. Those symbols right there these are archetypes. These are archetypes. They're extremely critical in our business. That first sketch, although it looks very primitive, isn't as primitive as a scribble, but it looks. I've been doing this for 19 years, and we haven't been able to avoid doing that scribble. So, these are symbols, and they're very important. One of these is the most important aspect at the site. This whole thing represents the site. At the site may be a mountain range, maybe a ski resort, maybe the Eiffel Tower, maybe any number of things. But we will instinctively know which one of these symbols is the most correct one, is the most important one. And we'll place a number 1 on that tomorrow, not necessarily today. Okay? The other symbols are archetypes for contextual information. Meaning needs context. So the most important symbol, whatever it may be, he'll know, because he's the viewer. I can't. My attention wasn't turned there. It was watching him. One of these will be the most important things. By definition, we'll call that the target. At the site is a target, and the other things become context. Meaning needs context. So if I'm looking for, let's say, a stolen nuclear weapon, then let's say the weapon's here in symbolic abstract form, and this becomes the location. Stolen weapon / location. The problem is location now. If I'm looking for the location, here's the weapon. Is that my most important aspect? No. The location is. If I'm looking just for the weapon, then the weapon becomes the most important aspect. Unconscious gives me exactly what I asked for. Tomorrow we'll go into this in great detail. Okay? So we use this first sketch in our business as a jump-off point for everything that we do. It becomes a critical page. We expand upon all these and we go from the scribble, the gross, to the general, to the specific, to the detailed. Through a lens darkly into the detail. All this stuff all the detail resolves itself by going through this process. Reminds me sort of like an oil painter. You prepare the canvas, the mat, you put down a primer, you just glob up some oil paints, and you start working out the detail. You can't do the detail first. Or a stone cutter, carving a carving. You got to knock off the big chunks first before you can do the detail work. There's no shortcuts in this business. I wish there were, but there's not. We have to go through all these primal steps here. The same way that a builder would build a building. You got to dig the hole first before you pour the foundation. Pretty ugly, pretty ugly. But that gets you a strong, solid foundation for the superstructure and then the finish work, equivalent to what we call the higher stages in our process. This is how we start, right there.
Questions?
Were you getting words?
Yeah.
Words like words pop in your consciousness.
Exactly.
May I interject one more time here
If you
about
must.
that?
If you
The
must.
question was, were you getting words into your conscious awareness? You don't know what's going on in your unconscious. Where it's dumping stuff into conscious awareness, but you're not. You do not know what's going on except by dint of your labors here. Your unconscious is dumping information, and the way it happens is this way. The unconscious has no words. There are no word labels in unconscious. There are only patterns of information. Okay? There's no words. Unconscious doesn't store data the same way that our brain does in terms of memory and in terms of the words connected with those. But what happens is the pattern of information that let's say red, the idea of red is connected somewhere with the target. That idea is there. It has a pattern of information. It finds residence in our memory, our experience of what that pattern in real life, in the world, in the material world is. We call that experience the color red. It's in our memory. And so in a tachistoscopic sense, we go right brain, using the left brain, right brain model, go into the right brain to grab patterns of information. And then now into the left brain, the thinking part of our brain, to look for a label in memory. The closest label that he had in his experience to what he was perceiving was this one, called red. Then back into unconscious for a new pattern, amber, a smell of fresh. Are these real perceptions? No, they're not. This process is virtual unreality, I like to call it. These are illusions. The data is correct, but the perceptions are illusory. You're not really perceiving, in spite of the fact that you'll swear that you smelled these colors or heard these sounds, onomatopoetic sounds or whatever. It's an illusion. It's all based on triggering a memory, the same way that a neurosurgeon can trigger the smell of your mother's coat when you were 7 years old by just moving that wire a millimeter this way or this way. Swear that you see somebody standing in front of you. You'll go to your grave swearing, but that's that neurosurgeon tweaking this wire. The same way here. So the perceptions are unreal. The data is correct though. One of our biggest complaints, we have two big complaints by new guys like yourself. One, where am I getting this? I don't feel connected with the data. I'm not experiencing it. It's not an experience. It's not meant to be. It's an information collection skill. Information has no charge to it. There's no drama. It's just information. Is it important? Mm-hmm. Would you rather experience your sister's breast tumor? Or would you rather tell the doctor exactly where it is, whether it's metastasized or not, its geometry in terms of its size and shape, and where its placement in the breast? Or would you rather experience your mother's pancreatic cancer, your sister's tumor, or whatever? You get the picture? An information collection skill. This is not an experience. It's not. Lay back, relax, close your eyes, and tell me what you see. Imagination will be glad to accommodate you. That's where the rigor comes in this process. That's why the rigor is so important. Does that answer your question, sir? No, it doesn't.
Well, on the smell, for example, do you just get the word of that smell, or do you actually sometimes sense that smell and then say, well, that smells like, and then write it down?
Either way, it can come in as either a word or a memory, a sense. But the sense is an illusion. It's a threshold electrical signal being triggered that says, in my memory, is this particular label, which is the best fit for this pattern of information that just got dumped out of my unconscious that's connected with the target. My unconscious attention is connected with this target, I'm depending on it, just the way a pilot does with depending on instruments at night. You cannot see the airfield. If you're flying from Seattle to Narita, Japan, on instrument flight at night, your instruments, you have to depend on them. You can't see the water, you can't see the ground. Your instruments only can tell you where you're at. If you've attended to your flight plan and you can read those instruments well, then 12 hours later, those lights down there should be Narita. This process is your instruments. You have to depend on it because you can't stick your head into the unconscious. If you do, what happens? Very important point. Suppose in remote viewing, we cross that line and we bilocate. And all of a sudden, we perceive the target. And I already told you that it's an illusion. It may appear real. But if you cross that line, and now all of a sudden, you have all of the information about the target, and it becomes an experience. Now it becomes an experience. I'm really in the Amazon. There really is a boa constrictor right here. There's really trees and smells and mosquitoes. Oh my God. The moment that happens, the whole field collapses. You lose the target. We don't allow ourselves to cross that line ever as professionals. And if you do, the whole field collapses and the target's gone. Why is that of value to survival? Because if I want the experience of, let's say, inside of Zhirninsky Square or KGB headquarters right now, I really want to get in there, or I really would like to know where the murderer of Nicole Simpson is at this moment, and I want to be sitting right there with either those people or that person that murdered Nicole Simpson. If all of a sudden I'm right there and I happen to be crossing the street out here on Sepulveda, I'm dead. I'm a dead man. You can't be in both places at once and balance. My autonomic nervous system has to, it takes a lot of processing capacity to stand as a biped on 2 feet. If all of a sudden all of that capacity is turned to somewhere else and I'm focused at another place in time space, I'll bump into things, I won't be here anymore. That's why it's of survival value not to cross the line. And in fact, indeed, unconscious doesn't allow you to. The only time you can do it safely is in an altered state when you're on a bed and somebody's right here watching that you take care of yourself. If you're alone and you cross the line, your chances of survival go way down. You'll get hit by, especially in Western society, you'll be hit by a car, you'll trip over yourself and fall off a cliff. So it's of survival value not to be totally experiencing the sight. Okay? Any more questions?
The 10-second sketch, does that come from perception or from the words that you previously written?
Honestly, it's as if you're going through like this and the material is scrolling up and gone. You're going to pay no attention to anything that you just wrote. You're constantly going for the next piece of data. But for this sketch, it's completely intuitive, from the gut, so to speak, that I'm literally letting my hand go where it wants to go.
It's your body's rendition of the sight. Okay? Let your hand do the sketching. Right from the unconscious to autonomic nervous system. You'll be amazed at how two disparate individuals will come up with the same thing. That's why this process works. Because the process is standardized. Carl Jung, the great psychologist of the last century, knew this well.
A couple key things as I went through here. If you'll notice, anytime I got information, can you see that sort of kind of behind me? Anytime I got information that did not pertain to the category that I was in, I set it off to the side into this trash column over here on the right-hand side. Okay. You'll notice the pen points there. You'll notice the whole time my pen is on the paper. Unless I write something, it comes back, pen back on the paper. This is a subtle signal to unconscious that you're ready to write. If your pen is dangling up in the air here, if you remember when we used to write letters, to friends instead of email, this was a sure sign that we were pausing and thinking. Roll that wrist up. So the pen tip always on the paper, telling unconscious, I'm waiting, I'm ready for the next piece of information.
In that particular category.
In the particular category
like it's a
that I'm in.
touch screen operation.
That's an excellent analogy, a touch screen operation, in that I am, okay, this is the information, the next color. take it right out of unconscious. So this information that I was writing, as it was coming to me, primarily 90% of these words in between my first scribble and my 10-second sketch is coming to me in two ways. I'm either hearing the word inside of my head, or I see the word spelled out in my mind's eye. Just that simple, that quick.
Sir, do you have a question? That would be thinking. That would be thinking. And if you catch yourself thinking, you're in big trouble. You're about to crash and burn. If that process that you're calling about, going back and checking, is a thinking process, and that's not allowed in this 3-minute segment. You keep on moving and perceiving, and write your perceptions down. You don't look back. Don't worry about anything that's back there until the end of the session. Then we can go back and put our thinking caps on, but not while you're flying along. Okay. It would be like a tightrope walker, all of a sudden thinking about the argument that he had with his wife last night. You know, you don't want to think when you're walking that tightrope or when you're downhill skiing. Okay, it's autonomic act. Don't look back until it's over. You're too busy. A good analogy would be a plane, a fixed-wing plane. If you go too slow, you stall and you lose lift. Airspeed goes down. The plane falls out of the sky like a rock. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep going. Okay. Dump the stuff as trash, and we'll talk a lot more about that. What's trash today, but we just need to expose you to the mechanics, the basic mechanics first, so that you can do it and make some mistakes, and then we can correct them. That's the best way to learn this.
Okay, so my pen was on the paper. You also notice there was no more than about 3 or 4 seconds would pass with my pen on the paper here, waiting for something. If nothing comes, okay, time to go to the next category of information. Okay, salty, fresh, liquid. Holding, nothing, okay, got to go to temperatures. 3 to 4 seconds with nothing coming before you got to move on. As Ed said, a moment of time, about 3 seconds. If you pause waiting more than about 3 seconds, 4 seconds, imagination's going to run in and fill that void, which is why we keep moving. So 3 minutes, top to bottom. This right here, let's see what we got here actually. Oh, interesting. It's actually not too bad. Rough. Okay, good. Salty beach scene was all right. Red, amber, white. It's a picture of it's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Okay, Leaning Tower of Pisa. All right, so this is what we're going to do, and this is what you're going to do in every one of your remote viewing sessions. We're going to go through this, and we'll say, okay, do we have rough here? Well, yeah, we got concrete structures. Generally, rough is okay. We won't give credit for rough twice, though. Or I could just keep writing that and get lots of credit. Sandy? No. Red? No, there's no red. Is there amber? No, there isn't. There's definitely white. That's the primary color of the site. And yellow? Yeah, there's white, there's yellow. I'm not going to give myself credit for that. Smells fresh? Could be. I don't know. It's a city, but it looks a nice, clean day. Salty? Nah, nothing really salty. Is it fresh tastes? Nah. Liquid? No, not really. Temperature's warm. A lot of times when you're doing a remote viewing session, you're not going to be able to tell, whether it's warm outside or whether it's cold outside based on the photograph. So I can't really say that it's warm or that it's moderate. The information's not wrong. I just can't verify it. Okay, quiet sounds. Is it quiet? I don't see a lot going on. Echoes? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Kind of hard to tell. Dimensions. Flat. Do I have flat? There is flat. I've got angular structures in the front there. I definitely have open. Let's see. Do I have far? I'd probably give myself credit for far. I mean, it's generally far away. Here we go. High. I definitely have high. I've got a structure that's high. At the same time, I have low at the same, I got a little statue that's lower than it, which brings up a good point. Lots of time in your remote viewing session, you're going to get data that appears mutually exclusive. High, low. And you're going to want to edit out that low and say, oh, I just said high, and I must be making up low because it's the opposite. That's the diligence. Write the word down. You've got to write everything down in a remote viewing session. Outside, definitely outside. And here's the key one is angular. Angular is key to letting actually myself know and an analyst know. It's a key dimension letting you know that you have something that's man-made at your target site, and that your target is not a beach, it's not a mountain, that generally you've got something man-made. So angular comes through. Here's my basic sketch of the target site. I've got essentially, there we go, we can get into some advanced analysis right here. You see that right there? This is a standard archetype, means a city, generally
Whenever you
speaking.
have a 90-degree angle, you're dealing with a structure. When FM tries to do this, this demo, he's trying to instruct at the same time as remote viewing. His attention is on instruction as well as remote viewing. So his split brain, our processing capacity is limited up here. And he's trying to instruct at the same time he's going to remote view. You'll be able to do much better than what FM is doing up here on your sessions, because I'm going to make sure, we're going to make sure that all of your attention is on the target and not teaching somebody else. But anyway, yes, if FM would have asked himself what's the most important aspect here, it's the structure. 90 degrees are always a structural element at the site. With virtually no exceptions in our business, we'll know there's a structure at the site. If you were to remote view the planet Pluto and find that consistently, we know from our experience it's there. It's absolutely there, as long as we're in present time. We have to, so we know there will be a structure. It's probably not a canyon. It's probably not a crystalline, orthogonal crystal or something like that. It's a structure. So.
What I want to point out then with this, the key, the target here is the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You see that I capture this. I've got this sense of something going up like that at an angle.
Diagonal.
A diagonal. And diagonals are fairly unique, and they're pretty easy to pick up as remote viewers. If you've got real strong diagonals at your target site, you'll pick them up. So at this point, I don't know what I have exactly. I know I've got something man-made, but I've got something that's like this, but at the same time, it's tall, you know, see what I mean? They come together like that.
So the unconscious splits apart the archetypes. The idea of structure combined with the diagonal is split into two separate archetypes. And you'll learn how to deal with this post-haste. We need to get the basics down. These are archetypes. That's what they represent. Archetypical symbols that are very, very important, keyed to whatever is at the target. Diagonals are also very unique in nature. If there's the other thing that you would pick up if you were to remote view this room, and we may slip that as a Mickey to you, would be there's a tripod back there, and it has 3 diagonals. So unconscious would sketch a diagonal. Diagonals are very rare in nature. If anyone ever asked you, and they will, what's the easiest thing to remote view? It's a mountain. A mountain is big, or a mountain range. A mountain, one mountain and a mountain range are the same thing archetypically. The gestalt, the entirety of the archetype is the same, whether it's one mountain or many. One high-rise building is the same as a city, with a few minor exceptions, as archetypes. Okay? But a mountain is big and it has diagonals, and it turns out that mountains are the easiest things to remote view for that reason alone.
Open up your workbooks. Pull out one of those sheets of paper, those worksheets. I want you to pull that out. You're going to work with 2 things in front of you, that worksheet and also at the very back of your book, your target descriptor word list. Those are the 2 things that you want in front of you.
Before we start, I wanted to say that in terms of signal to noise ratio, unique things that are in your immediate field of view that are noisy should be removed. So for instance, sir, that red soda can is noisy, and you won't be able to do a remote viewing session without picking up the color red, because subliminally that's right in front of you. You'll integrate it into your data. It'll be false information. So anything like that's unique, especially bright colors, move it out of your field of view. There are very few things that unconscious is attracted to in terms of novelty. Very few, but there are a couple. I've already mentioned things like ice cubes in a warm room, unnatural. If there's something totally out of context and unique, it'll be attracted to that. Diagonals in nature. And the other thing is rotation. A rotating thing, a fan, a dryer on in the house while remote viewing, even in another room, translates immediately. Your autonomic nervous system picks it up and your hand goes like this on the paper. You won't catch it unless you're aware, but that will happen. So try to avoid that. Those are noisy things in terms of unconscious and autonomic nervous system responses. You cannot not do that. I remember getting off a plane from a foreign country once, going through LAX, and I cleared customs. My bags were cleared. I was picking my bags up, getting ready to go out and catch a cab, and I feel this thing on my leg. And I look down, and there's this beagle with these sad eyes looking up at me like this. So I follow this leash out to this woman in a uniform, this DEA inspector who's holding the beagle. And it's like, yeah, right, I had an official passport at the time and all that, like I'm a drug dealer. It's a drug dog. And she knew that, she knew better. And she said, do you have a cat? Yes. Like that. Because the beagle, in spite of all its training and its rigor, could not stop its genetic patterning from going after that cat smell, right? Well, unconscious will do that with rotation, diagonals, and anything that's novel. Novelty acts as a stimulus.
You're going to work with two things in front of you, that worksheet and also at the very back of your book, your target descriptor word list. Those are the two things that you want in front of you. If you're right-handed, you want to have that word list somewhere off to the left. If you're left-handed, perhaps the other way around. We've got a target right here, and I'm going to march you through this, and I'm going to direct you what to do and when to do it, and you're just going to follow along. By the end of the day.
This is a target folder. Inside here is target reference material. It's probably a photo.
Yeah.
Okay, it could be the name of a target. The target reference material is in there. That's what points your unconscious to the target. The target is the remote, ergo the term, remote viewing, is the remote site. That's where we go. So target folder, target reference material, the target's designated by whatever is in there, a word or a picture.
If you would please, pick up your pen. We're going to go through this worksheet, 3 minutes, a couple of basics.
Now, I will do interrupting a little bit at the time. For instance, sir, could you not lean on your fist like that? Because this is an attention management skill. We should be as highly attentive as possible, you know. And never close your eyes. That invites imagination. You know, don't lean on your hand like that. That kind of sloth and lethargy will cost you. And you know, we want to be attentive to the process too. At the same time, don't stiffen your body. I might point to your shoulder and say, "You relax and do this. This is supposed to be fun. Damn it, it's fun. And we'll make sure we have fun, right? So we want to do that too. Okay? So I'll be walking around. Just
as Ed says, the body, stay relaxed. If not just the mind is a receiver of information, it is the entire body. We stay relaxed. Don't forget to breathe also, you know. Breathe normally. Take your pen and grab your pen assertively, you know, like ready to go, like you're in school. Sit up, you know, relatively straight and attentive, feet on the floor, just and pay attention. Like I said, we have a target up here. Your mind will access that target and get the information. All you have to do is pay attention to the structure in front of you there. Everybody take that pen and let's not rotate the pen, flip it around. Hold on to it assertively like we're gonna write a letter. I'm gonna time you through this. Also, as I talk, don't look at me now. Now's the time for heads down, looking at your work and paying attention to the structure. So as I talk, hear what I have to say, but pay attention to that paper and the information that's coming to you, all right? And you're just going to write down everything that comes to you. And we're going to start by taking your pen and putting it in that first square there, right in the middle of that top square where it says scribble. And in 1 second, I want you to give me a real quick, just autonomic scribble right in there, right now. Go. Real quick scribble. Do it now. The first word on the paper down below there is textures. Put your pen there. Take the first texture word that comes to mind and write it down. Take a look at that word list, and as soon as they come, write them down. Write that down. Write the next texture word. Write it down. Keep the tip of your pen on the paper. Hold it there. Next texture word. If you're not getting anything, take a look at that target descriptor word list and scan that word list. Let's go to colors now. Take your pen, put it in colors. I want you to give me the first color word that comes to mind and write it down. Don't judge it right or wrong. No editing. Next color word. Pen on the paper at all times. The next color word, write it down. Keep the tip of the pen on the paper. If anything else extraneous comes in, put it over in the trash column. Try and give me at least 3 or 4 color words. Let's go to smells. Pen tip on the paper. Smells. First word descriptive of smell. Write it down. If you're not getting anything, take a look at that target descriptor word list and scan that word list. Let's go to tastes. Put your pen on the paper there. Write the first word descriptive of taste. And write it down. Whatever it is, write it down. If anything else extraneous comes in, put it over in the trash column. Let's go to temperatures. Pen on the paper, temperatures. First temperature word comes to mind, write it down. And then the next temperature word, write it down. Stream of consciousness thing. Everything that's coming in, you got to write it down. After temperatures, let's go to sounds. Pen tip on the paper, first sound word. And then the next word descriptive of sound, write it down. And then the next word. Keep your head down, eyes down. Let's go to dimensions. Take your pen, put it in the dimensions column. I need at least 4 or 5 dimension words here, folks. Minimum of 4 or 5. Get them right out of conscious mind, or take a look and skim that dimensions word list and pull them off of there. Just the first one your eye alights onto, one that just feels right. Stream of consciousness thing. Everything that's coming in, you got to write it down. Keep the tip of your pen on the paper. Hold it there. Don't judge it right or wrong. No editing. Keep the tip of the pen on the paper. Give me at least 4 or 5, folks. After that, I want you to go to feeling. How does the target make you feel? One word. Actually, I only want one feeling. After that, go to that sketching square there and just sketch whatever your body feels like sketching. No thinking, just hand moving.
Don't get your mind in the way. Just let your hand do the sketching. Watch your hand sketch. When it's done, it's done.
About 10 seconds and then that's it. Any more and imagination's going to get involved. When you're done, go ahead and set your pen down.
The dimensions are highly important. All the way that we order information, we're dictating to conscious awareness the order in which we want unconsciously derived information down on that paper. The textures first, the colors next, on and on and on. Well, but dimensions are in a category all their own. If you have dimensional contact with a site, you're there. You have dimensions. If you're not getting dimensions, you can rest assured that you don't have good contact, that something's wrong with your paper. Go back and start it again. So I'm going to encourage you to add to your repertoire of dimension words by reviewing that dimension list a lot. The rest of the sensory impressions are scaffolding to get you to dimensions.
As Ed said, why these dimensions are so important, that before you can actually sketch and start to sketch accurately and trust, your mind-body has to have some concept of dimensionality.
What's around you? What goes like this around you? What kind of verticals? Verticals are important. So is there anything around me through a lens darkly? This idea, not that you're anywhere, but using the idea of virtual reality as a model. Is there anything around me that goes up? If so, is it low, medium? These are subjective. We'll talk more about subjectivity later. Your stage, this sketch that you do, this 10-second sketch, there's no scale or perspective in that. Don't expect any. We'll have more to say about that later. But is there something around me that's low, medium, high, tall? Is it tall and narrow, tall and wide and broad? We want these. It forces the issue, because if you ask yourself that question, by dint of the labor that's associated with attending to the answer, the work that you do pulls you closer. It allows you to resolve more and more and more detail about the target and the site. And that's what we're doing here in a very systematic, rigorous way. Again, the model that was put together cost a lot of money of your tax dollars, but it works. If it's not broken, don't fix it. This really works. And it's not hard, but you got to do it. Okay.
Shall we take a look at the target? There you go. Your remote viewing career is underway. Okay, there's your target, actually. As Ed said, remote viewing is a three-part process. The first part is the targeting or the cueing, setting up the problem. So what is it? Your target is, as defined by me, is written on this folder as Mount Everest. Okay? So inside there is target reference material that identifies Mount Everest at this particular moment in time from this angle or perspective to enter into the target from here. Okay?
The feeling word that you get, by the way, at the end of the list, why is that important? It's only, not important because it actually is trash, believe it or not. The way you would feel if you were actually at the target. You don't have enough target contact to really have a feeling that would be apropos to the way you really would feel if you were there. What you're doing with that in that feeling column, you're seeing if there's any charge, emotional charge that you have that you're putting on the data. Like, hey, this is interesting. Are you getting caught up in the drama of the target? If you are, you want to dump this word. I'm frightened, or I'm excited. That kind of, because we don't care. That's a personal problem. We want it dumped. You don't want your own emotion interfering with the neutrality, the objectivity of the data stream at all. That's why we ask you, how are you feeling? Dump it. You know, like therapists do, they have you write, not that I would know anything about that, but therapists usually, I've been told by my students that they have you write things out to objectify as a clister all this stuff that's going on. It's gone. Now you can stay neutral. That's what the feeling word is for. This is Gabriella's session. Her 10-second sketch is actually quite good, and I will tell you why. One, she has the target in there as an archetype. The idea of a mountain or a mountain range, same thing to the collective unconscious in terms of archetypes. And what is this line right here representative of? Clouds are really a river in the air. So this actually is an archetype in work that you do in the future when you run into thick clouds, either smog or precipitation. Okay, it is like a river in the air, in the sky, and you will get this wavy line here. A wavy line is generally water, liquid, as an archetype, and it does appear. Here, it must be there because the archetype's there. You have no choice. You've got to put it down. So, in fact, there are two basic archetypes at this site. Mountain is the primary one. It happens to be the target, so it better be down there too. And then you have this river of clouds, of moisture in the air, plus the snow right here, which is also solid water. So there's two archetypes here, two. Air, the air in the sky is not an archetype. Empirically, we know that. It doesn't present in our data. It doesn't happen. The way we evolved over millennia, eons of time, I guess we weren't interested in air as an archetype. So it doesn't appear in our symbolic sketches as an archetype. In modern learning theory, feedback is important. So that's feedback to yourself. Feedback in our work in the classroom, again using modern learning theory, feedback should be immediate and it should be aesthetic to be valuable. That's the most valuable feedback. So in the classroom here, the immediate feedback is opening the envelope to see the target rather than waiting after lunch or 2 hours or the next day. That fulfills the one criterion. And the other one is that the photos are aesthetic. They're color photos of the site. They're appealing. And that really bootstraps the learning process, those two things.
Let's see, we're going to do another remote viewing session. Same thing, give me a worksheet and have that target descriptor word list. Use that. Relax. Don't forget to breathe. We're going to take 3 minutes again from top to bottom. And we've got a new target here. I'm going to, for the second time, I'll call out and tell you where you kind of need to be. You can move ahead. If I'm still hanging out on textures or something, and you've already gotten that, and you're moving down, go ahead, move ahead. That's okay. But I'm going to be bringing up the rear with everybody else. There's your target. Head down, eyes open, paying attention. First place, let's take the tip of our pen, put it in that square there. Real quick autonomic scribble now. Go to Textures, pen on the paper, relax. Start downloading information. First texture word that comes to mind. Write it down. After textures, we'll go to colors when you're ready. If you're not there, be in colors now. Try and give me 3 or 4 colors. Get the smells now. First smell word that comes to mind, write it down. Anything else other than what you're on, put it in the trash. The trash column. Let's be on tastes. Pen on the paper. After tastes, temperatures. Take whatever you get. Make no judgments about it. Just write it down. After temperatures, move to sounds. Words descriptive of sound. Keep that tip of the pen connected with the paper. And dimensions. Let's move to dimensions now. Leave everything else there behind. First dimension word that comes to mind, write it down. And then the next. And then the next. As fast as they come, write them down. I need at least 4 or 5 dimension words before you can move on. So give me those 4 or 5. When you get to the feeling, I only want 1 feeling word. When you get down to that sketch, 10 seconds. Sketch straight from the gut. Let your body do the sketch, guide your hand wherever it just feels like it should go, just do it. And with that sketch, anything you find you're doing in the air with the pen above the sketch, put the pen down and sketch that. When you're done, put your pen down.
I encourage all of you to review the dimension list. The other categories of information, except for textures, which is very important, the other categories of information are not near as important as dimensions. Textures are one of the most important columns, and one of the most important categories, but dimensions, again, in a class all by itself. And you need to be aware of the dimensionality of the site, at least through a lens darkly. That murky unconscious down there, that soup, reach down there and get the right dimensions. Don't worry about being subjective or objective right now. Review the dimension list on break and build up your toolbox of dimension words. That will serve you well.
Right, and that's how you'll drop this word list as a crutch. You'll know all of those. You'll be able to get. You know, if I asked you to list 20 dimensions on a blank piece of paper right now, 20 in 60 seconds, you'll be able to do it. Bam, 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 write them that fast. You have a large vocabulary from which to pull.
My teacher knew that, my teacher who was the father of remote viewing, Ingo Swan, said I was weak on dimensions. And he took me out in the streets of New York City, and I had to name 100 different dimensions, textures. Very weak on textures, and I had about 8 textures in my repertoire of textures. And it wasn't important, but it became real important really quickly. It was very embarrassing for him to point to things on the street, you know, and everybody watching me, and then spontaneously say what that is, and for him to correct me. I didn't want to do that again. It was very embarrassing. But that's what he did until I had 100 different textures in my repertoire. I knew what was glassy as opposed to metallic and smooth and cold and shiny and fuzzy and furry and bristly, and those kinds of things. I had to get that down because it actually is very helpful to have a tactile idea of what's at the site. Well, there's something here that's, let's say, I touched this table. There's something here that's slick and it's low and it's flat and it's white. You're going in and you're touching the pattern of information and you're collecting things like that. You're not holding steady at the target like you would try to do in an altered state. You're turning around like this. Click. My attention is there and I'm exploring the site. It's like a spider trying to grab a handhold at the target. Spider web is a beautiful structure, but watch the spider try to weave that thing at first. It gets a leg hold wherever it can, an anchor hold, before it starts to weave this beautiful intricate structure. That's allegorically like what unconscious is doing when it's exploring the target and passing information to conscious awareness. Click, there's something that's white and it's vertical and it's flat and it's edged. Okay? You're taking glimpses in a tachistoscopic sense of the target, and you're coming back over here, looking for a label, dropping the label, going back. It's like a Pez dispenser. You got to pull that thing out for the next thing to drop down in the chute. You know, you got to do it, and then the next percept drops down, and the next percept, and the next percept, it's like that.
Actually, as Ed described, you can, on breaks, and after you leave this workshop, you can build your vocabulary in your regular working day, waking day with this list. As you're walking around, start with what are the textures, what are the colors, wherever you're at, and identify all the colors that are around you. Smells, what are the smells, and the dimensions, and this will aid you greatly in your remote viewing.
But keep in mind that after you do become facile with this list, when it becomes easy to use it, get rid of it. It's like training wheels. It'll start to impede your progress and slow you down. When you start to become skilled and your skill levels start to go up, take the list, wean yourself away from the list, because we want the spontaneity as we go through that 3-minute checklist. We want to be more spontaneous.
See what our target is. Go through your data top to bottom, all right? And I want you to do this with every session that you do. Give yourself credit for everything you got correct, okay? This is now feedback back to your mind saying, yeah, that's right, this is what I want next time. Either circle it that's correct, put a little check mark or something. Go ahead, let's do that now.
This is Lars' session. I like his data, I like his ideogram, but I don't like his 10-second sketch. I'm going to fix his sketching. The sketch does not lend itself to analysis, which we're going to have to start doing soon. The rest of his data is fine, the ideogram is fine. But the way I'm going to fix his sketch is now I'm going to tell you why these dimension words are so damn important. Okay? He's got dimensions for the site: open, curved, vertical, and hollow. But his sketch, does not portray any of that. The dimensions accurately translate into sketches. So if I ask him to actually sketch the open, instead of doing this, to go back and rely on your dimension words now that you know how important they are, and ask yourself, where's the open? Sketch it. Where's the curved? Here. Where's the hollow? Well, it's over here too. And where's the vertical? It's here. If your sketches look like this, start leaning on your dimension words and do this. Well, I've got something, let's say, that's vertical and it's flat. Okay, the flat's here. Vertical. Do this. Just render the idea as a line. Vertical. Okay, there's the vertical. Now I've got something. Does that feel good subjectively? We don't care whether it's a coffee cup or the Eiffel Tower right now. Don't worry about it. Does that feel good? Yeah, that's my vertical. Where's the idea in my 10-second sketch of hollow? Well, hollow. Let's see. The hollow is down here. There's something hollow there. And where's my idea of, let's say, tubular? Gee, I don't know, tubular. You see the work? This is work. You ask yourself the question, I'm working this out. I'm working out the dimensionality, and it pays off. Tubular. Well, actually, I think the tubular and the hollow are connected, in fact, like this. And so what you end up sketching is something like that by leaning on your dimension words. So we would rather have that 10-second sketch be spontaneous and freehand. That archetypical sketch, it's much preferred that it be spontaneous and freehand. But if your sketches don't look good, and you need to bootstrap the process or lift yourself up by your bootstraps, do what I just said. Lean on your dimension words, but they better be right. And they better be there. Okay? Work. We're working. We're working. The same way you would work a math problem or drawing blueprints or anything else like that. It's the same thing. Only our modality is a little bit different. You know, we're leaning on more on psychic awareness, if you will, rather than our own memory, our own knowledge base. We're going into an infinite source of knowledge for this. It knows everything, you know, and we need to lean on it, which is unknown. You have to trust it. It's the unknown, but it's accurate data. There are at least 3 archetypes here, 3 primary archetypes in this target. The target is the Golden Gate Bridge, so that's the target. If the target were Mount Tamalpais or the Bay, San Francisco Bay, you know, that would then unconscious turns itself to the bay, and then the bridge becomes context. But anyway, we have a structure, we have water, and we have land. 3 archetypes: structure, water, and land. Water may present itself in your initial scribble. Let's say our target's Lake Michigan or in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. Water may present itself as a wavy line like that. Okay? It may also present itself as a soft straight line. Not a hard line like land, but a soft straight line like that. So it can present each way. However, in the sketch, the 10-second sketch, water may present any way. It may present as a waterfall going like this. It may present as a lake, a pond like that. It may present as a river, parallel lines. So you cannot necessarily know that you have water either in that or that. Okay? We'll know later. We'll know later on when we do the detail work. But we have to focus the image first, allegorically speaking, and that takes some work. There are only a few things that we can discern analytically from the sketch. Only a few. Don't try to think you know anything else about the site based upon that 10-second sketch, except the following. We may know if we have land. We'll always know if we have structure. We'll always know if we have motion. We'll probably know if we have mountain range, it's the same thing. We'll know if we have a circular feature, large or small, golf ball or planet. And we'll know if we have a life form, a living thing. We'll know if we have energy in any form, bomb explosion, lightning bolt, electricity flow. And that's just about it. That's about as much as you can know analytically at the end of that 10-second sketch. Anything else you think you know about the target is imagination, trash. Okay? We can know, as remote viewers, everything about the target, every single thing, but we can't do it without doing this the fundamental stuff first. It's part of the decompression process. And I cannot overemphasize how important that 10-second sketch is. Everything that we do from this point on, as remote viewers, everything we can know about the target hinges upon how well that sketch is done.
There is one of several exercises that you can do to focus your attention a little bit, and it's an exercise that's called upside down drawing. Remote viewing is essentially a right brain activity. Upside down drawing, by drawing something that's upside down, the left hemisphere of the brain drops out of the process, because the left hemisphere of the brain is involved with naming objects, applying labels to things like head, nose, face. A very curious thing happens when you try and sketch something and the image is upside down, that the left hemisphere of the brain drops out, gets bored with the process, and you'll find yourself getting a brain state switch to the right hemisphere of the brain, very focused, very attentive on what you are sketching, and that's the optimum brain state for remote viewing. You're going to sketch this as if you had an hour to sketch it. Your sketch that yours is also upside down. They're both upside down. Don't try and translate it at all. Just sketch exactly what you see as it's upside down. I'm going to sketch every line and get it exactly right. Exactly. Upside down. That's right. I'm looking at it upside down. And what happens is, believe it or not, it is a piece of cake when it's not right side up. Because the left hemisphere of the brain has, as I said, dropped out of the process. And all I'm concerned about is making the curve of each line correct, making sure that it's the right distance, there's the right amount of negative space, in between lines. Going at this rate, it'll take me about an hour to finish this, okay? That's what I want you to do. The question, should she be getting the information right out of her mind, or should she be looking at the word list and pulling the information off there? I would recommend, for probably at least half of you in here, the easier thing to do is to just keep your eyes on the word list and constantly go through like that. And as opposed to sitting with the pen on the paper and trying to wait for the information to come. If you find yourself doing that, putting your pen on the paper, waiting for the information to come, then you need to be looking at that word list and just literally pulling that information off of there. That word list, folks, is a crutch. That is all it is. It's a vocabulary list. It is a font, a source of words, of vocabulary. So essentially, you're going to use that word list, you're going to build your vocabulary and get to the point where you know where all those words, what they all mean, then you won't need it anymore, okay?
The best remote viewers, the best students that I have, when people come to take a professional course, they say, what should I bring with me? And I said, you better bring a lot of patience with yourself. You got to have, don't get frustrated easily, like any other thing, and be used to work. Those are the two things I require when I accept people as a professional, in a professional class. Teachers, mechanics, computer software engineers, anybody that works with detail work, artists, good candidates. Anyone who becomes frustrated with themselves easily, a very bad candidate. Because this process requires a lot of work and it requires a lot of patience with oneself. The tool for remote viewing is this and this. That's the body, mind, brain system is the tool that we use. It's not a piece of technology that we build, that the technologists and scientists are used to. That's their diagnostic tools, how they probe the universe. We probe the universe with our tool, this one, okay? And so it's the same tool that developed those tools that they use to probe the universe with. This is the font. That's why we call it the matrix. The collective unconscious is a limiting term. The matrix is a better term because it's the font from which all form arises, including technology. I have my own ethics. What my students and what my team does as individuals, that's up to them. I have my own ethics, my own ethical standards. I think they're good ones, but they may be wrong. I don't know in terms of right or wrong. I will not, for instance, violate the sanctity of somebody's mind and thoughts. I don't even remote view my wife's mind. I don't think that's fair. Just because one has the skill to do something, I don't believe, personally, right or wrong, one has the right to do it. Just because you have a specialized skill doesn't give you the right to violate someone's privacy. So I won't do that, but I do draw the line with murderers and terrorists. Now someone might say, what's the difference? Well, at some level there's probably no difference, but I'll take the hit. Okay? I don't use my skills to violate the privacy, the sanctity of someone's thoughts, unless I'm asked to diagnose an illness, a psychosomatic illness, by that person themselves. Ed, I can't sleep, I don't know what's wrong with me, can you please help me? It might be, I'm losing my mind or whatever. Well, you must be a remote viewer. No, just kidding. I'm losing my mind. If it asked the plea for help, then I would go and target that particular person's malady. But other than that, ethically speaking, I'm not going to do it. In the military, now I've changed a lot over the years. I've really changed, because when I was a military officer, hey, no problem. Just point out, who do you want, who should die, go to the State Department. Who's our enemy today? Those guys. Okay, turn your mind over there and let's kill as many of those guys as we can. That's the immature soldier, habituated, our culture. I didn't know any better, so I did that. Now I know a little bit more, and I'm a little bit more mature. Not much, but a little bit more, and I don't do what I used to do. How far in the future can we go as a remote viewer? We're not going anywhere. We're turning our mind's attention, we're turning our attention to a target. Unconscious attention follows. It's like a joystick here. We turn our touch screen operation on the page, the unconscious attention goes to wherever we turn it to. Okay? We turn it into the future, and the question is, how far can we go? The far has to be adjudged in terms of human concepts of time, standards of time. And that doesn't apply to the unconscious, so I don't know how to answer the question. I don't know how far we can turn our attention to. I don't even know what far means, honestly, in terms of the collective unconscious and what we do, in terms of time. Far implies distance. Time implies something else, a temporal arena. I think there's a mismatch there dimensionally. So I think the question itself is a misnomer. What we can do as remote viewers is see events that are, the larger the event in time, in the future, the larger the event, no matter how far it is, we can pick that up. If events are very large and they influence a lot of people, for instance, we can pick those events up thousands of years, I believe, thousands of years in the future. Okay? I think that we can do that. The reason we don't, as practicing professionals, don't turn a lot of attention to that is because there's no practical use right here on our watch, and so we just don't spend a lot of time in that area. And I think, and how would you validate how far out you are, figuratively speaking, anyway? So we don't do it. We're not there a lot. Our attention wasn't turned that way. There aren't that many professional remote viewers in the world. I know most of them, and we weren't looking there. We were looking in other areas. That's what we were doing, not there. We're looking there now. We're looking at terrorism now. We're looking at the next terrorist attack now, for what it's worth. But our attention has to be turned. It's a very precision tool. It's like a telescope. Where are you pointing this thing? If you're looking there at that star, you're not going to see this explosion over here. You're not going to see this quasar over here. You're not going to see this new planet over here, because you're focused that way, regardless of how big that is. You're focused this way, here. We could have looked at catastrophic events, massive loss of life. Events, next massive loss of life, North America, next. We would have been able to describe this event, but we would not have been able to know how far out in the future it was. We can't. Mind is outside of time. So we're not able to do that. We can see it, but we don't know how far away we are. It's like looking at a big mountain in the distance. You can see it. It's easy. You can see it. You can keep going toward it, but you can't adjudge the distance. That's us. Is the military still using remote viewers? The Chinese military is, but the American military is not. The Israelis use psychics. They've had some very gifted psychics. I know this for a fact over the last 30 years. Very gifted psychics that they've gone to, both the Mossad and the line units, the Mossad particularly. But they're not remote viewers. They're psychics. The Chinese appear to be developing an operational team. A common question, a frequently asked question is, why did the U.S. government abandon the remote viewing program, especially after investing nominally $20 million in developing the model of the tool? And the answer to that question is this. This program, I've been involved in some very classified programs as a military intelligence officer, extremely classified, black programs. This particular program that went under various names ended up as in the CIA's bailiwick as Stargate, but started out in the Army arena under other names, was so controversial. It was a hot potato, and nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole that was of star rank. Anybody with stars or destined to wear stars did not want anything to do with this program because it was experimental and hot. If something went wrong, and the public found out that the U.S. military was using psychics to gain intelligence, and that you were the general that was associated with that, or the colonel, there goes your star. That's why. That's why it was abandoned, because it jeopardized, it placed in jeopardy the careers of a lot of officers, number one. Number two, there is another reason why it was abandoned. There were two officers, one a civilian intelligence official and the other an Army general, that did see this as an end-all. And they were actually responsible for sending this down. An Army general and a civilian scientist who were briefed on the remote viewing program went overboard with this. They lost their balance in terms of what this was. They saw it as a sole source of intelligence, a source of intelligence that could gain insight into any problem and solve any intelligence problem. And we know, as intelligence officers, career officers, that you never go with only one source of intelligence. You go with three. You want three different sources, three different systems to tell you the same thing before you act on the information. These two officials they saw this as the goose that laid the golden egg in terms of intelligence, and wanted to act on only the remote viewing team's intelligence, and that was wrong. And in fact, in instances where our data was wrong, they were presenting it as correct. When we told them, we don't know if we're right or not, we told these officials, we don't know if we're 100% correct. They presented the data as being 100% correct. That took us down. Took us down. Have we ever remote viewed Area 51? You can do that.
I asked if you've ever done it.
Have I ever done it? I don't have to. Friends that work there. Why should I remote view it? I just ask them, hey, what's going on? Oh, that's neat. But I would suggest you taking an overhead photo of the area. Take an overhead photo of the area, and there are some. It doesn't matter what year, do that. And begin by circling in the photo, or take a Xerox copy of a photograph. Circle, in turn, what specific things you're interested in. What secret structures or whatever you're interested. Put a circle there, and learning what you've learned today, give it a name, just give it a target name. And then turn your attention only to that rather than the entire Area 51, because you'll have more data than you can ever digest, right? You won't be able to do anything with the data. So take it in bite-sized pieces. this structure here, this funny looking structure, under it, if it has an underground component, turn your attention to that, spend a couple of weeks there, then go on to the next structure using a different photograph. Do it systematically, all right? Do it that way, and then you'll answer your own questions. And pool your talents with other people using what you've learned here. Build your skills up, and then pool your talents. Our data over the last 19 years of my work indicates that there's at least one group of extraterrestrial intelligences that are aware of us and monitoring us, but they are so far, if you use the term evolution, they're so far ahead of us just in terms of technology. Technology even becomes a misnomer, possibly not 100,000 years, but 100 million years ahead of us. It really serves no useful purpose to us Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons to look at them, to do anything with them. What utility is that? Yep, they're there. Now let's go back to work. That's it. It'd be like 2001 Space Odyssey, the chimps and the monolith. What do you do with that? That's what we are relative to them, as far as we're concerned, that idea. Do they know that we know? Yes, they do. They know that some of us remote viewers are looking at them. They know that we know about them. But so has that changed the way their attitude toward us? If attitude is even a concept anymore, I don't know. I have led expeditions of very wonderful scientists from the Skunk Works, from the Stanford Linear Accelerator, the head of the U.S. Space Station Life Support Team, some of the best scientists in this country. I have been the team leader out in the desert using our remote viewing data to take this team out in the desert and make measurements of hot zones where UFOs come and go. Okay? And we've got to validate the existence of the phenomenon. For me and for them, they wanted to know how these toys work so they could reverse engineer them. But that's as far as we've gone in terms of really getting our teeth into the UFO problem. And that's good. It was adventurous enough for me. But that's as far as we went. I could be lying, of course, but I don't lie. Yeah, that's about as far as we really got. That's all that I really have direct exposure to and knowledge. Yeah. We have a lot of information about crop circles, and we have a lot of information that describes their creation, but we don't understand it. We honestly don't understand crop circles, and that's okay with me. I mean, who wants to know everything? It takes the fun. I'd shoot myself if I knew everything. It takes the fun out of life, the thrill of the hunt. I don't want to know everything. And in the case of crop circles, I'm not sure we're ever going to know anything because it is so enigmatic. It's very, very enigmatic. There's so much. It's a rich field. I don't want to go into all the technicalities, but it reminds me of sort of like, how the Navajo and the Tibetans have these sand paintings? It's like a reverse sand painting in some way. It's like the prayer comes down and does that to this ephemeral media, grass, transitory in nature, that's meant to be placed in ephemeral media, grasslands, but it's like an upside down, like a reverse Rorschach. It's like an upside down prayer, upside down sand painting, where the prayer comes down instead of up. That's as close metaphorically or allegorically as I can describe what we're getting. Yes, we have some information on the technology, but we don't understand the whys. Because in our business, it's the same as any other business, the investigations, who, what, where, how, why, and when. Those are the ones. And the whys in the crop circle phenomena are probably intractable to us. But we've looked a lot at them. They're neat. It's really a neat thing. There's so many phenomena out there. In terms of phenomenology, there's so much stuff. There's no limit to what we could look at. So we're pretty practical guys and gals, and we turn our attention to where we can use this effectively and where we can make an income, because it's also our profession. It's our livelihood. So that's also important for us as professionals. We need to be able to make a living at what we do, and when we have time, we look at the sexy stuff. Take my word for it. What I don't talk about in the scientific and technology community is something that we take for granted in-house. We just keep it quiet because it's too new age. And that generally is the reality of angels. Angels are real. They are real. And they're around. Just because we can't see them, they're there. We know that as remote viewers. You may accept it because your church said they're there, but remote viewers can detect them. And they are real. And in fact, and it's an angel that prevents any negative influence from anybody. And I don't want to go into a lot of war stories about this, but it is true. They stop any negative influence. If I wanted to, and if I could, try to make you into a Manchurian candidate or have you rob a gas station for me, I wouldn't be able to do it because an angel would prevent me at some level. And we've actually been able to describe this in our work. Can we talk about this technically? No, we can't really do this because the time's not right. Mankind, I mean, I can talk to scientists about angels, but I don't have an audience anymore. A rose by any other name. Why? Why screw around with the names? Angels fits. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's an angel. The reason I chose angels is because something was interfering. We actually did use the military unit in an attempt to influence certain Soviets, certain Russians. And we were finding that even in an attempt to gain certain classes of information, we were always off target. What's going on here? So we remote viewed the remote viewing sessions themselves, the operations themselves, to see what was happening in those instances where the viewers were slipping off the target. And that's how we discovered these, I called them outside agencies at the time. What the heck is this? There's something in our unconscious mind that can influence and shunt and edit the information. What's this? Very nonplussing when you have a mission to perform and you want to kill the bad guys. Hey, we want to kill these guys. What's stopping us? There's something here that's stopping us, right? From getting the information, we need to ambush these people or to poison them with a poison pen. I was a spy, right? That's what we used, to spy stuff. What's stopping us from doing that? Angels, okay? These things. So I had to go to all these books and say, Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, St. Jerome, and say, hey, the description of these things matches this one. They're calling it angels. So, you know, Occam's razor. And why give it another name? Fine, give it another name, but angels is good enough. So how do? You know, I'm Ed Dames, operations officer, and how do we get around you to kill this guy? And we can't. They call the shots under certain circumstances. So if you pull certain strings, they're there, watching. Otherwise, they stand back, allegorically speaking, watching. Just watching. But they're there if they need to be, saying, no, 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 you don't get to see this. Or, come over here. And I thought I was in charge. So. They're real. And they're sort of the engineers that engineer our destiny. We make the choices here and here. They set it up for us. Somebody has to do that, right? They're the ones. But that's a hard sell out there in Washington, D.C., and National Security Council, and Los Alamos National Lab, so we don't talk about it. You can turn the camera back on now. Well, as remote viewers, we know, as professionals, we know that we have a big problem with, we know that something exists when a person dies that is outside of the material body which decays and the mind which goes away. There's something else that exists, but we can't get our teeth into that because there's no common denominator, there's no baseline in our thesaurus, our toolbox, our lexicon to put any labels on what we're perceiving. Yes, we perceive something. I'll attest to that. There's something. You can call it whatever you want. Soul, spirit, whatever. But we can't grasp it. We don't have any left brain labels in our experience to say what that is. It's like a child. You're trying to teach a child remote viewing. A child can easily target a person, for instance. Let's say a person that's lost a loved one. But the child has no experience with grief and pathos and anxiety and all those things that make up the experience of a normal person who has lost someone in life. Child hasn't done that normally and doesn't have words for the things that they're perceiving. A child who's been taught remote viewing can only say, for instance, there's a man here in this room and he feels bad. That's it. No lexicon, no thesaurus. Well, we're, as eclectic as we may want to be, and as experienced and as replete our thesaurus may be with all kinds of rich words and word ideas, there's nothing that's left that can still grasp what this thing is that's left after a person dies, or what we are before we're born. We can't work with it. So, outside of our bailiwick, it's a limitation. I pointed out that the Matrix did not really understand how to adjudicate the search term of terrorist until 9/11 events. Then, in no uncertain terms now, the collective unconscious knows what terrorist means. Any remote viewer will turn their attention to, if they turn their attention to the next terrorist attack in a certain region of the world, will produce the same data. Whereas before 9/11, there was a lot of ambiguity in the term terrorist. The old adage of one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter applied. Now, that term is forever cemented, possibly forever. It's certainly cemented now in the Matrix. The Matrix understands what we mean by terrorist. So the question is, could there be an event that would perhaps educate or at least cue the Matrix to what we mean by continuity of consciousness, or what happens after a person passes away, a person's essence? Could there be some hook that we could get, or some event that could happen that could possibly educate the Matrix as to what we mean when we say spirit, essence, soul, or whatever that is? I don't know. I don't know. I'm a simple man. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know at all. And I think that it's outside of mind. This is a mind tool. And I think that these kinds of arenas are outside of mind. They're somewhere else. They're at the level where we actually exist as entities. It's at that level. And this is a mind tool. So we're at the wrong place. There's a mismatch here. We need to go somewhere else where there are no words, where we exist as who we are. Go there and then follow that. I think we could go that way. And then come back, and then maybe after that experience, and then possibly put that into words. But you know what? I think over the last several millennia that's been done. Attempts to do that have been done by enlightened people, savants, and all that. They've tried to say what that is. I think it becomes obfuscated and confused, but at least people have tried. Better men than I have done that. To what degree they're able to articulate that in terms that people can understand, I don't know. What's next with remote viewing? I don't know what you're going to do with remote viewing, what all you are going to do with remote viewing. I know where I'm going. It has nothing to do with remote viewing. Remote viewing is a mind tool. It's of the mind. Okay? I found something deeper than the mind, turning remote viewing on myself. Far deeper. Way deep. Down here. What I really am. Who I really am has nothing to do with mind. Absolutely nothing. That's where I want to go. I want to explore that part of me. It's a whole lot more sexier than the mind. It's who I really am. This is who I think I am. Yeah, it's great. It's a mind tool, very powerful and unique. But I want this now. I used remote viewing to find this. That's where I want to go now. Bye, folks. Take it, do whatever you want. Have as much fun with it or more than I did. Become better than me. I'm out of here. Fast. Like real fast. Okay? That's what I found. And I mean it. Absolutely not. I just did. I shared it as much as possible because it has no words. What you find with it, there's no words, there's no way to share. There's nothing you can do. You have to just stop and go there. But by going there, all of a sudden you get to experience this planet and this world in an entirely different way. And you turn over here and say, holy shit, what's this? And there's things on the planet that have been waiting for people to find this so they can see that. I use those terms allegorically more than figuratively. And it's real. I'm not talking about esoteric stuff up here. I'm talking about another level of being that you can use. You don't have to wait till you die and your soul goes away. You can use it right here and go over there and experience things that you can never even perceive, because perception is a material thing. It deals with the brain. What I found is has nothing to do with the brain. It has to do with another part of us that is who we really are, not this thinking shell. You use remote viewing to look at instead of looking at all the stuff out there, the problems, the solutions, the things. Life is interesting. You can look at all the interesting things there are forever. But turn it on to yourself and see what's there. Use remote viewing to look at who you are. Ask that question. Look at who you are. Who am I? And start researching that. Watch what happens then. It trips certain levers. Certain things start to happen in your life, and you get to see things that are unimaginably interesting then. And all this other stuff then becomes moot. You know? Of course you're still compassionate. Of course you still have to eat and all that. But there's something very, very interesting at that level there. Very interesting indeed. And I know I'm not the first one to find it. You know? But now you see what the savants were talking about, and all those masters that had all this stuff to say about what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Now I know what they're talking about. Because there's no words to express what they're talking about. They found something really neat. That's what I want. I want that now. You take your name and you qualify it with who and a question mark, and you explore that. But I would suggest that before you do that, that you get a little bit better at your skills first. I used this to look at all the mysteries and the wonder that we had. What's the Loch Ness Monster? What's UFOs? There's all these things got to look at. I had a wonderful adventure. Was out in the field with some of the best scientists, following up on our data, led expeditions, using remote viewing data. I had all that adventure. But I didn't find the real gems until I turned this on myself. I started to use remote viewing to look at the fundamental questions that have been asked for millennia. Who are we? Who am I? And when I started asking that question, that started to get really interesting very fast when I turned the tool on me. When you ask those questions, your world changes. Everything changes like that. And that's where the most profoundest mysteries and the most awesome discoveries are to be made, when you turn this on yourself. And then you see what happens and what you have then. Because that opens up a whole new universe of possibilities. That has nothing to do with a mind tool anymore. So remote viewing has become scaffolding for me to go on to something else. You can find that for yourself, because I'm not going to tell you what it is. But it's neat. It's a wonderful thing. I'm so happy that I got to find this before I died. Even though I died tomorrow or tonight, I still found this thing that's wonderful. And it makes life more than worth living. It makes death a neat thing. It makes life a neat thing too. It's a wonderful thing. And I'm not talking about something that's strictly esoteric. There's real stuff on the planet, on our earth, that's been hidden. Hidden since the beginning of man. And it's there. It's there waiting. And that's what I found using remote viewing. So.
We're going to take 3 minutes from top to bottom. Give me a worksheet and have that target descriptor word list. We've got a new target here. Relax, don't forget to breathe. I'll tell you where you kind of need to be. Head down, eyes open, paying attention. Pick up your pens. First place, let's take the tip of our pen, put it in that square there. Real quick autonomic scribble now. Go to textures, start downloading information. After textures, we'll go to colors when you're ready. Let's go to smells. Let's be on tastes. After tastes, temperatures. After temperatures, move to sounds. Let's move to dimensions now. I want you to go to feeling, one feeling word. When you get down to that sketch, 10 seconds. When you're done, put your pen down. See what our target is. Go through your data, top to bottom. Give yourself credit for everything you got correct, okay? This is now feedback back to your mind saying, yeah, that's right. This is what I want next time. Either circle it that's correct, put a little check mark or something. Do that now. We're going to take 3 minutes from top to bottom. Give me a worksheet and have that target descriptor word list. We've got a new target here. Relax, don't forget to breathe. I'll tell you where you kind of need to be. Head down, eyes open, paying attention. Pick up your pens. First place, let's take the tip of our pen, put it in that square there. Real quick autonomic scribble. Now, go to textures, start downloading information. After textures, we'll go to colors when you're ready. Let's go to smells. Let's be on tastes. After tastes, temperatures. After temperatures, move to sounds. Let's move to dimensions now. I want you to go to feeling, one feeling word. When you get down to that sketch, 10 seconds. When you're done, put your pen down. See what our target is. Go through your data, top to bottom. Give yourself credit for everything you got correct, okay? This is now feedback back to your mind saying, yeah, that's right. This is what I want next time. Either circle it that's correct, put a little check mark or something. Do that now. We're going to take 3 minutes from top to bottom. Give me a worksheet and have that target descriptor word list. We've got a new target here. Relax, don't forget to breathe. I'll tell you where you kind of need to be. Head down, eyes open, paying attention. Pick up your pens. First place, let's take the tip of our pen, put it in that square there. Real quick autonomic scribble. Now, go to textures, start downloading information. After textures, we'll go to colors when you're ready. Let's go to smells. Let's be on tastes. After tastes, temperatures. After temperatures, move to sounds. Let's move to dimensions now. I want you to go to feeling, one feeling word. When you get down to that sketch, 10 seconds. When you're done, put your pen down. See what our target is. Go through your data, top to bottom. Give yourself credit for everything you got correct, okay? This is now feedback back to your mind saying, yeah, that's right. This is what I want next time. Either circle it that's correct, put a little check mark or something. Do that now.